Fuck. I might sneeze again. Alright, so, you know that one of the problems with having to post stuff live, or having to post stuff up public, there are people who will go through my videos and pretend to be doctors, and pretend to be autism advocates, like that Kara Johnson Miles lady. Poor Boba Fett, I'm gonna blow my beak in him. I yelled at Jason today. Not, well, yes, at him, but not over his behaviors, not over wrong shit that he did. It's wrong shit that a lot of people did and just didn't realize how wrong it is, how hurtful it is, and how much it took up. Explaining to him how important it is that when I have to talk to folks, that somebody is there to hear what they say and verify it. Whether it's him or somebody else, it still has to be done. Also, when I go to turn these crimes in, there needs to be an advocate there with me. There needs to be a friend or family member there. A lot of people, I understand 100% why people don't want their shit up on the internet. On the bright side, at least the shit I put up about them is the truth. A lot of people get angry at me and they go, hey man, why don't you post up everything? I do. My God, I do. It's a matter of having a place to do so. There'd be a lot more on there if I had the ability. A lot of times people try to shove me into a homeless shelter. When I first came here, probably the first, I don't know, it was about the first month. I want to say the first 2 weeks, but it was definitely longer than that. I tried to do the whole getting into the, what do you call it? The helping hands. That's the homeless shelter here. And apparently it's a really nice place. Like I was told on the outside it looks like an old church school, but on the inside it looks like the Sistine Chapel. Whether that's an accurate description, I don't know. I've never been inside. I've seen pictures of the inside of the Sistine Chapel. I've seen pictures of the outside of the Helping Hands building. It kind of looks like an old church school, but it looks more like the central building to an army post. The command barracks, or commanders, what do they call that? Basically the base headquarters. There's a specific name for it, I just don't remember what it is at the moment. And it looks like one of those, and because that particular style was used by the United States military, it was used all the way back going to the Civil War, and after the Civil War as well. These are not the same fortifications. This is a military base, as in like parade training and recruitment. And what you might not know is that prior to World War I, American troops were organized according to state battalions, state unit organization. That did change a little bit with Theodore Roosevelt and the Rough Riders, but that was a regiment that was hastily thrown together. They were in competition with who was going to get to go to war. Not that anybody cares about history. Anyway, the Helping Hands building looks like that. I've had a few people that went to the Helping Hands that have told me I don't want to go there. And I've had a few people tell me, hey, you're not going to get along there. Everybody who's there is a recovering heroin addict or still on heroin. They'll go out on their whatevers and then they'll come back fucked up, and the staff are too stupid to know. Like, oh my God, you can't have staff at a center like that have no experience. They had to get the wool pulled over their eyes real quick. I was told that it's run by a lady who's really, really, really smart. Like, she's supposed to be really, 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 really smart. Like Bridget Stegeman smart, apparently, which... All right, so I got a really high IQ. I've got an IQ of 172. Bridget Stegeman has at least a 10-point lead on me. Her IQ is at least 182, possibly 184 or 186. I mean, it's way the hell up there. And from what people were telling me here, this lady who runs the Helping Hands is like that intelligent. But I also had people tell me this is people in the community who have not gone to Helping Hands that are telling me this. I've also got people that are telling me that, yeah, there's a smart lady that owns the building, and she's a rich, smart lady who knows all about domestic violence and addiction, and that she owns the building, but that it's run by some other lady. And then somebody else was telling me, well, that's wrong because the guy who's in charge of it is actually a guy. And then I was told that that's wrong, that it's run by a woman because it's specifically supposed to be for women to begin with. And so, like, really, nobody in town knows shit about Helping Hands. And the stuff that I'm getting from people who have actually been there is completely conflicting with what these different organizations and the police are telling me about this place. It's not like a standard shelter, though. It's like a live-in shelter for people who are recovering addicts. That's basically what it is now. Whether it started off intending to be that or not, that's primary clientele of theirs. I've never actually been out there. The reason for that, obviously, with my vehicle issues and with running around to 10,000 other places, and also going to services that have called them. I mean, obviously, the place does know I exist. I have actually called them. I've given them my number. I have not actually been out there. God, Danell, is that it? The lady that I talked to on the phone. You guys can go back and find the recording, I'm sure. Unless I made it on my clandestine recording device, in which case it's sitting on one of my computers. Very specifically this one right here. Move this over. This computer would have everything since leaving Nebraska. Everything would be put onto this computer, except for the couple of times I've been able to pull out the big one. God, I fucking hate allergies. It's not the rain, it's not the trees, it's not the pollen, it's nothing like that. It's fucking alfalfa. We're in cattle territory, and lots of cattle folks got horses too, because you got to have horses if you're a cattle folk, which is funny because cattle folk don't ride their horses with the cattle. They ride the ATV out with the cattle, and they ride the horse for leisure. By the way, state of Oregon will give you a tax break for having a horse if you're a rancher. Fucked if I know why. Apparently, the tax break is enough if you have a decent enough amount of cows that the tax break that you're given, or the special monetary thing, it's not exactly a tax break, but because you have a horse to help wrangle your cattle, you get a lot of break because you're not using an ATV, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's because back in the day when they made the law, because I don't know when it was made, maybe it was back in the day that people were trying to do the ranching thing without any horses, and if your cow got out, it was impossible to get it back, and they went, you know what, $25 a head for a cow. If you don't have a horse, that cow becomes a $25 liability. Anyway, Jason Scudder today, I yelled at him. Well, my voice was elevated and I was loud. And I was venting to him about how, it has to be somebody who knows what's going on. I was telling him about his son Jared and about how some of the stuff I'd show him, he understood. I also explained to him, well, the situation, like with the text messages between that person, the two of them now that are doing that. And I showed him last night, and I recorded that as well to him. So, I mean, not only is he a verifiable witness, it's recorded, he's somebody I've got a history with. Now, also, he's one of the people whose numbers I gave out, and yes, they're aware of it. But I made it very specific that, I'm only giving out the numbers because the police need to investigate it. They need to talk to these people, and when I try to explain it to them, I don't get that far. If I do get that far, they still don't contact the people, and Mr. Scudder has verified that. Jared has verified that. Scott Scudder is the only one who says that he talked to a police officer about it, but all of them were gonna. Same thing with Dallas Palmer and several others. There's a lot of witnesses to the situations with Farnsworth, too. Now, there's a lot of folks here in town who have no faith in the cops, for good reason. Now, Jason Scudder, he was telling me not to go through that center there, that I need to go through the cops. And I explained, well, because I'm a disabled person, and I do have the disability paperwork, and it is a developmental disability. They do have to do something, and what they're doing is not it. That's what forces me to go public with it, to post these things in public. I don't want to do this. Now, with the Scudders, that's entirely different than the situation with Vicky Rain. Vicky Rain I exposed as a predator. Now, of course, the thing with me being abused over people in town that are friends with these folks, like, Jason Scudder, he knows Farnsworth, and his wife knows Farnsworth. They've known him since, he's known him since he was a kid. And they both knew Farnsworth and his brother. And again, Jason today stuck up for Farnsworth. Thank goodness. Somebody fucking needs to. Not just me, not just Jason. That lady there, the one that yelled at me, said he's mentally ill. I know. 81% of Americans are diagnosed with something that's in the DSM-5. That means that 81% of the population of America is automatically discredited unless somebody cares. There are things that will make people care. If you've got a nice car, that denotes you might have the money for a lawyer. People are more likely to listen to you. You live in a house, it means you might have the money for a lawyer. People are more likely to listen to you. You're good looking? Well, people know they need to listen to you because everybody listens to good-looking people. And that's something you guys might want to argue about, but just look it up. Also, I want to have you look at not just the opposite gender or whoever you happen to be attracted to. If you're a male who's attracted to males, same thing applies. But the point is, I want you to look at the people that you find physically attractive. And look at the way that you interact with them. Look at how many times they ask for your help and how quickly you give it to them. Now take a look at the ones that are unattractive. What do they do for you? How do you interact with them? What do you tell them? How often do you check in on them? Yeah. Most of you aren't going to go check. You're just going to go, oh, well, I don't do that. A lot of people did that with me. I was like, man, everybody keeps talking over me before I can finish what I'm explaining. when I try to explain why it is that I can't just magically get up housing. I have to have a 2 year history of rental history before I can get back into housing because I broke those windows. But also, you say, hey, be responsible for your actions. Well, I am responsible for my actions. Guess who broke those windows? That's right, I did it. And yes, it was absolutely necessary. Now, as far as the having to post everything live, I don't want to do that. I never did. At the same time, this stuff needs to be taken seriously. If they can use the term mentally ill to deny me my rights whenever they want, they can use the term mentally ill to deny me the right to turn in a report or to threaten, harass, or intimidate me into not doing so. Or, of course, the situation where they try to blow it off and then later on they say, oh, well, you should have turned it in immediately. I did turn it in immediately. I turned it in to the folks at Fred Meyer's the night before I ended up having that issue. What I was venting to Jason Scudder about, it wasn't just venting, I was fucking loud. He understood though too, because he come over to my vehicle because he's got to go. Well, an embarrassing situation, not my place to say, and really doesn't have any bearing except on the fact that he couldn't finish out the day with me today. There's also the fact that he doesn't quite understand that there has to be two types of advocates there. Someone who is a member of your friend, who is a friend or family who genuinely cares about you and your well-being, needs to take part. Then there's the advocate from whatever advocacy agency they send me to, and there's supposed to be one from the Department of Health and Human Services. Meanwhile, I've got all this stuff that I've had to look up, and all the phone calls I've had to make, and the fact that many of these places don't do what it is that they're supposed to do, but they're taking your tax dollars. Most of the people who are in therapy don't fucking need therapy. They need a safe environment, but how are they going to get a safe environment when they're being abused and their therapist is just sitting there collecting a check for listening to them talk about being abused? Mr. Hargraves in the Lincoln Correction Center. Whenever I would tell him about being sexually assaulted, he'd smile about it. Whenever I'd tell him about being assaulted by the guards or by the police, he'd smile about it. Mr. Hargraves did not believe that I was schizophrenic. Now, he just got done getting his licensing and was moving to another prison where they were hiring him on because of that licensing. But there was also a prison break a few years back. And I guess Mr. Hargraves was one of the people that was partially to blame for it. He said it's difficult to get over that. So I got to learn a little bit more about the therapist I was talking to in there. Now, the reason that was happening, Ted Hill knew I wasn't schizophrenic, and he was pissed off about the fact I was in there. He said, they shouldn't have told us that you're schizophrenic. You're not. They should have let us know about your diagnosis before you got here. Instead, they told us you were schizophrenic and delusional. You're not. Mr. Hargraves doesn't believe you're delusional either. And none of us, absolutely none of us, think that you're schizophrenic. Now, there was one doctor that I spoke with, Mr. Arata, Dr. Arata of Lincoln Correction Center. Now, at the beginning, he and I were speaking, and I was explaining to him about the situation with DaCosta and being treated like I'm delusional, and that there's a big difference between schizophrenia and autism. And he actually noted that I was making things out of origami that I had literally just learned how to make. And I was making my own designs and patterns while in 5-point cuffs. Like, your wrists are strapped to your waist. And I was folding origami that way, trying to get my fingers working right. And it's not easy. You know, my hands don't work as well as they used to. But it wasn't until after that situation that Miss Lauderdale tried to break my fingers. That was a different place. Now, I want you to take a look at the fact that I was in prison, but I was not a convicted felon. Matter of fact, I wasn't convicted at all. I was only charged with misdemeanors, and they had to drop the charges in all of those cases. All of them. They had to drop the charges in from lack of evidence. Yeah, I did some things that ain't exactly nice. Telling the truth definitely pisses people off, but it's not against the law. Now, what the cops had to do was infer that I was threatening to kill people. They did this repeatedly. Oh, he's threatening to kill people. Well, I admitted to every crime I committed. I've been doing this since before Natalie died, just so you know. There's still a video up on my Facebook that shows that. I admitted all of my worst sins. Now let's talk about the situation with Danell and Dr. Dove Rainbow. What a strange name, right? A lot of people, when Selena Not Afraid got, well, we thought she was abducted, but she was killed by exposure. Murder by exposure is what it's called. But they won't call it murder. All the situation surrounding her death points to that, but they won't call it that. The situation with me having to put it publicly. When I posted up publicly that I was going to turn in Leslie Snell, Scott Costa, William Barr, and Robert Franklin Warnick, I had to make another attempt. It's not that it was just one crime by Warnick that I repeatedly tried to turn in. It's that it was multiple crimes by Warnick that I was trying to turn in. But it wasn't just Robert Franklin Warnick. It was also Carl Snell, Clint Snell. Clint Snell talked nice to me. He really did. He even offered help if he could, but he couldn't. Now, why couldn't he? He said he has to go to his kids for help with that stuff. Now, his kids apparently have been named as my victims. Well, what have I done to their kids? Nothing. Nothing at all. Would I be able to recognize their kids if I saw them in the street? No. Well, all right, Jolly, but he's a grown-ass adult. Yes, his real name is Jolly. Jolly Snell. These people are actual people. They actually exist. They're not figments of my imagination, no matter how much the cops who committed crimes against me want to pretend. No matter how much they want to blow it off. Now, Scott Scudder, he's the only one that said that he talked to the police, but he didn't have their names, and the stuff that he said, I'm not sure about the truth of it. I do have to question it. But that doesn't mean that he lied. Anyway, Jason Scudder tried to help yesterday to the best of his understanding. Today, to the best of his understanding as well. It would have been nice if he would have sat there with me while I showed the lady. Well, the place where Miss Rainbow works is called Tillamook County Community Health Centers, so TCCHC. I guess I got it close earlier when I said TCHCC. Not to be confused with TFCC. Anyway, Dove Rainbow does work there. It's actually her name. She does actually exist. That's actually her name. So she's a real person. The problem is that the numbers that I've got, one of them is a Nebraska number, pretending to be this person who dumped off all my crap at my vehicle. Now, the cops didn't take it seriously when this situation was happening at Fred Meyer's. Vicky Rain, there's no consequences for her, but I can't go back to Fred Meyer's. She can. Whoever dumped it off can. Now, why didn't they bother to take a look at those things? Now, obviously, that officer, let's make sure we get his name correct because it's important. We don't want to blame people for the wrong stuff. Zach Neubauer. Now, Zach Neubauer is the officer I'm going to try to talk to. The other thing is, I really do need to speak to the police chief. We can forgive and forget this stuff only because nobody has died yet. But we need to get on the missing people and the human trafficking. And more importantly than that even, and you guys might disagree, but consider 81% of the population has some diagnosis from the DSM-5. The mentally ill tag and how the homeless are treated. Between suing the shit out of this town and having a public apology from those officers in the newspapers with a promise to do better. I don't mean just to do better, but a promise to get proper training. I will volunteer my time to sit with them and go through these videos. I'm not talking just my evidence. I'm talking about actual mandated reporter training videos with the clergy. Robert Farnsworth, there are so many resources in this town. There are 10 people just worth of business cards on the wall of the receptionist lady I spoke with today. Now, people pretending to be Rainbow Dove getting a hold of me. Rainbow Dove is one of the people that works there. That's 10 people who work there, at least. There's also the people who work at CARE. There's at least 12 cards there. Then there's the people who, well, Tillamook Family Counseling Center. There's Tides of Change. These are all actually pretty important, just so you know. If you're a female, they're more likely to help you, but also being female does not mean that they're going to. There is a good chance that you might be homeless, in which case you're looking at an uphill battle. Now with Danell and her name being used, and of course me having to record this and post it in public to show that the situation is never taken seriously. I'm always shipped off to somebody else. It's always somebody else's job, and I'm always being sent to do it alone when they're supposed to have somebody there and present with me. Mr. Scudder today, he was trying to do that as to his abilities, but he's also trying to give me privacy. I don't need that. So when I was loud earlier, it wasn't directed at him, but I was yelling. You know, I was specifically venting at him while I was yelling. So it's not at him, but it was at him, you know? And when I tried to explain it, you know, I tried to explain it in a calm fashion, which really sucks because when I have communication issues like I'm having now, it just ends up being all over the place, and it's hard to follow along. With me being stuck in public and being afraid of the public because of, well, situations like what happened yesterday with all of my stuff being dumped on me the night before, me being stranded, me being treated like I'm a bad guy for being stuck there. You know, the safety issues that were created with Farnsworth weren't created by Farnsworth. They were created by lack of action by law enforcement and lack of action by the church staff, all of whom were supposed to be trained in how to deal with a situation like that appropriately. They did not handle those situations appropriately. I'm probably one of the few people in this town qualified to actually help Mr. Farnsworth. I'm not qualified on paper. But most of my life, I grew up with people like Farnsworth. People who had experienced trauma and ended up screwed up in the head over it. And myself, yeah, living through it myself, absolutely I understand being screwed up in the fucking head over losing loved ones. Now with Mr. Scudder having to go and rescue his family, also him talking about poverty. I mean, this is something that most of the people who wanted to help me cited as the reason that they weren't able to. Sean, I'm broke. Yeah, but you have a phone and you have a voice. Let's make the call. You have a phone and you have a voice. Those of you who have seen this stuff on my channel, you can speak out. But who really gets on here? Trolls, people who want to pull out information they can use to try to harass me or to try to manipulate people. Meanwhile, I'm trying to expose the fact that these things are actually happening. They're not figments of my imagination. These phone calls are very real. Someone calling himself Zomkid is typing a bunch. I better read it. Typed. Why is your beard so long, bro? What are you talking about, bro? I'm just scrolling through YouTube shorts live and I don't know what this is. Answer, bro. Respond to me. What are you talking about, bro? I'm confused. Are you blind, bro? You ain't even responding. All right, so my best friend, Natalie Marie Bollinger, got her brains blown out in 2017. We had stopped being friends in 2016 in October because she was fucked up on heroin and her mom found her heroin on my birthday. So rather than telling the truth, they pretended like I stalked them. That's Natalie and her twin sister, Alicia. Well, that resulted in people being hella mean to me and eventually pretending like I fucking raped children and shit. Like, hell no, that's fucked up. But that's how it goes. Natalie was young and pretty. And of course, people want to believe young and pretty, especially when young and pretty is your drug dealer. Her and Alicia Bollinger were both dealing drugs for Natalie's dad. Yep, it is messed up, Zomkid. Anyway, they tried to, well, I was stalked, gang stalked by Natalie's friends for over a year before she was killed. I went to my friends for help. I tried to go to my family for help, but they were too fucked up on drugs. And eventually, Natalie was able to get a protection order against me by lying, and the police helped her to do it. I was in the process of trying to get protection orders against her and some of her family members and her ex-boyfriends who were calling me up and threatening to kill me and shit, and threatening to kill my family, but nobody cared. It's the same thing as today at the counseling center that I went to with Jason Scudder. Now, one of the things that I'm talking about on this channel, since you asked, is the phone numbers that I've given out on my YouTube channel. There's 2 sets of numbers. One of those sets is a set of numbers that when I'm having a severe panic attack over the cops not doing their jobs and me being sent to mental health, for mental health to tell me that I got to go to the police, for the police to tell me to go to mental health, it's exhausting. And when crimes are committed against me and those people refuse to investigate it, and the people who are witnesses to it, like the Scudders or like Dallas Palmer here or Claire Jordan, you know, they say they'll come forward, but then when they don't, you know, it results in me having to be afraid for even longer because nothing's being done. When I'm told to go into the courthouses, I'm afraid to go in there and be threatened, harassed, or intimidated again, especially since those people work closely with the police. When I'm trying to turn in police officers, the last thing I need to be doing is trying to turn them into their friends and family. Bad idea. So one set of numbers is the scammers. That's people who get a hold of me pretending to be medical professionals or people who have weird numbers from some of them even from other countries. But then when I go to the police and I start telling them about that, or the medical staff about that, they automatically start treating me like I am some sort of junkie. And I'm not. I'm autistic. And just because I'm autistic doesn't mean that I'm inventing people who are doing this stuff. That's why their numbers are up here. Most of the numbers on my channel are people who have repeatedly scammed me or people who have pretended to be friends of mine to try to obtain information they could use to try to harm me. Many of them pretending to be doctors, pretending to be lawyers, or in the case of Kara Johnson Miles, pretending to be an autism advocate. But in reality, Kara Johnson Miles was involved in many of those Natalie Bollinger justice groups that absolutely weren't about justice for Natalie. They were about crucifying me. From what I've been able to gather, there's only one person in Natalie's life who actually loved her, and that person is me. Everybody else wanted personal gain from her. A lot of people who offered to help me did so because they found out about Natalie Bollinger. They watched one of these Natalie Bollinger things and thought, hey, I'll get involved. A lot of them ended up just threatening my life, and some of them pretended to help, and then eventually I called them out for jitters. Alright, so, Kid type, damn, that's messed up. I don't know why I'm here. I usually only go on sports streams, not this. But this kind of interesting. I'm only 14. This is sad. Where you live, bro. Also, why you keep doing this weird sound with your mouth. I have Tourette's syndrome, and it results in vocal tics. One of the sounds that I do is, one of them is, and I also do this with my wrist or blink my eyes, one or the other. I'm about to sneeze. I apologize. I do recommend, if you're only 14, though, to get off of my channel because this is very adult subject matter. However, the abuse that I went through as a kid started before I was 14. The weird sound that I make with my mouth, I do apologize for that. I shouldn't have to, but it's something that I'm stuck with. Well, I was going to turn that one off. That's one of those restricted calls. The ones who call me up and breathe funny or threaten to harm my family or accuse me of doing stuff I didn't do and really weird voice like this, or trying to do a falsetto voice. That just sounds weird. My name is Megan. Anyway, I get a lot of those restricted numbers. There's also a lot of police officers who call me from restricted numbers. That is not acceptable. See, a lot of people, like Miss Peaches, a.k.a. Kayla Trujillo, one of my witnesses, she wasn't answering the phone because she's got a bunch of people who are bill collectors that call her trying to get her personal information. And there was a lot of people that were going after people that were friends of mine, especially after Natalie was killed. So when the cops called her, she didn't answer. For me, having literally hundreds of restricted calls coming at me at all points in time, I couldn't separate one restricted call that somebody threatening to kill me from the one call that a law enforcement agency or a lawyer will make an attempt at. They'll make one call. And they'll try to make it at the most odd hour of the day when you're going to be completely fucking busy and not going to have the time or the ability to sit down and set up a recording thing. Especially if you are computer illiterate like me. Although I am getting better, I only have a YouTube because somebody helped me to set it up. I only have an email because somebody helped me to set it up. So a lot of people, when they want to go, oh, you did this to harass Natalie and you did that to harass Natalie. Everything that I did, I had help with. And everything that I did, I had to con people into helping me. How did I con them into helping me? Look, I told them the truth. That's what I did. I told them the truth. Hey, I need help with this. I don't know how to do these things, and I've been trying, and I don't want to screw it up again. It's costly. Ideally, there needs to be 4 people in the room, which sucks because a one-on-one is the best way for me to communicate. I'm less scared that way. But if there's somebody who is there for my rights, for me as a person, it makes all the difference in the world, and that takes away a lot of the fear. Also, if they're aware of the situation, instead of just sitting there like a dumbass and letting them talk over me, that person can speak up. When one of those officers wants to interrupt me to sell a false narrative, that person can say, hey, that's not what happened. If they're a witness that was there, they can say, hey, that's not what happened, I was there. If there's somebody who watched the video of the interaction, they can say, hey, that's not what happened, I've seen the evidence. With the Michelle Brannick profile, you know who helped me to set that up? A woman named Jamie Curtis, not the famous actor, obviously. Now, I want to go back to the strangeness of people's names. My last name is Schwartz, and a lot of people find that strange. But they don't make fun of it the way that they do somebody who's Native American. Somebody with a last name like Not Afraid, or Noses Gun, or what's the other one? Well, Frida Noses Gun, Native American, obviously. Crow. I believe she was Crow because Hardin is bordering on the Crow Reservation and used to be part of it up in Hardin, Montana. The epicenter for missing and murdered indigenous peoples is in that area, and I exposed it over a year and a half before the news and before the government announced it. It took the government over 3 years to do so. And then the news says, oh, you heard it here first, or we said it first. I'm like, no, you didn't. With Clearview Behavioral Health, I turned them in before anybody else did. But it took people's families turning it in. There was a boy there who was underage, and he was abused there, the same as I was, but his dad turned it in. My dad didn't do shit. Zomkid typed, oh, I'ma go, I hope stuff gets better for you, that's all I can say. Girl Interrupted typed, I'm here and witnessing the gang stalking, I get them too, the calls. Hey, Girl Interrupted, that's one of the things, is that you can call these things in. Like, you know, when I send you the evidence, you can also turn that in as well, and you can explain that, well, obviously I was screwed. I was thinking about sending you some emails with some of my court paperwork stuff, but even just from the stuff from Arapahoe County, you'd need an actual computer. You're not going to be able to do that on your phone, and I'll break your phone sending it to you. That's not a joke. There was one lady who, she said to send it all to her phone. She said that she's got unlimited data on her phone, so I could send it to her and she could have it on her phone. Well, she didn't realize that the stuff that I was sending to her, on her settings, it was downloading to her phone instead of just her being able to see it. So she overloaded her phone with downloads. There's also the screenshots that I took and I sent to her, and those all went and got saved in her phone. So then her phone wouldn't work, and it also, even with unlimited data, once your phone's full, it's full. It's not going to do anything more. Meanwhile, I didn't know at the beginning that all she had to work with was the phone. She had told me to send it to her phone instead of to her emails, so that's what I was doing. And then she couldn't use her phone. Like, I was like, for a month and a half, I was like, what the hell? She was going to help me. I was going to send her this stuff, and now she's literally not responding to anything. I haven't sent her anything in like a month by this point because I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm also afraid she's one of these people like, well, these scammers that keep pretending that they're Dr. Rainbow Dove or Dr. Dove Rainbow. Dr. Dove Rainbow. Dove Rainbow is a strange name. Those of you who understand why it is that I think that's weird, It's not because I think she's a weird person or I think her parents are weird hippies or anything like that, which could be, but it's just about the fact that it's a weird name. It's kind of like people weren't wanting to believe that I knew somebody named Jamie Curtis because that's a famous actress's name. They didn't want to believe the story about Michelle Rodriguez in Boulder because that's a famous actress's name. Michelle Rodriguez, though, she's recorded in several of those videos with Waylon Lolatai. She's got a mouth like mine. She's one of at least 7 victims of Waylon Lolatai that were caught on camera. Myself being one of them. But the news, they forgot about me, didn't they? They also forgot about me when they talked about Clearview. That's because these very same news stations were instrumental in making sure that I was targeted no matter where I went. They were instrumental in assisting my predators in getting away by selling a false narrative. Natalie Marie Bollinger was not stalked by me. She absolutely was stalked by Tim Beeson. I absolutely was stalked by Tim Beeson. In her own words, of his actions against her before I went to Virginia to see her and while I was in Virginia seeing her, as well as his admission afterwards and his actions towards me afterwards, he was stalking her and me. Who was the one that had sex with Natalie? That would be her dad, and that would be Tim Beeson. Jason Scudder, when I yelled at him earlier, it wasn't me yelling at him out of hatred. It's that I am afraid and he's not quite getting the point, but it's not just him. I need him to understand it's not just him. A lot of people tell me, well, Sean, I'm broke. I know, it's not just you. It's not just you. Or, Sean, I'm afraid of the cops. It's not just you. A lot of people that promised to help me, months and months and months later, they finally go, oh, well, I'm not going to help you because nobody helped me when I had to go through it. Meanwhile, I look up what they had to go through, and I'm like, all right, you have a DV on your record. I understand that as a man that is easy to get, that you don't necessarily even have to put your hands on somebody to get one of those, which sucks because it paints all men as horrible creatures. Our guilt is assumed. Even with women 11 times more likely to be stalkers than men, men are between 6 and 26 times more likely to be arrested and convicted. Although women are up to 30 times more likely to be the physical aggressor in a relationship, men are more likely to be arrested. 30 times more likely. Now, why is that? Sorry, men are 11 times more likely to be arrested. There's a whole bunch of numbers I got to try to remember about the statistics. Meanwhile, I go to a lot of the professionals and I start telling them the statistics and they tell me, I already know. Or they start telling me the statistics and I'm like, yep, I already know. But when I say it, I get treated like I'm a schizophrenic nut job who's making it up. When they say it, hopefully y'all will listen. But no, you just pretend like it didn't happen. You skip over anything that doesn't fit your narrative of it's magically okay for you to harm me. It's not okay. Just like it wasn't okay for you guys to harm Natalie. By you guys, I mean web sleuths. Those of you who came on here because you watched Rob Gavigan's bullshit. Or because you listened to her predators instead of listening to her victim. Through all of this, I was the only one who didn't have a sexual interest in Natalie, or some monetary gain that I was interested in, or some crime that I was trying to hide. I'm the only one who admitted everything he fucking did. Right or wrong, I fucking admitted it. I lit a fire, I admitted it. Goddamn right I did. If that's what's necessary to protect children, then goddamn it, yes, I am willing to go to prison to protect them. Now, Girl Interrupted typed, maybe Dove Rainbow is Native American. That makes sense. She might also be a hippie. That would make sense too. What doesn't make sense is why they're not too interested or too keen on taking this seriously when there are people who are claiming to be doctors at that facility who are not doctors at that facility. These are people who are committing felonies by pretending to be a doctor at that facility. Same as Kara Johnson Miles pretended to be an autism advocate who was going to help me out. Meanwhile, she wasn't trying to help me out. She wasn't an autism advocate. She was some wingnut in Texas. She was all the way in Texas. She wasn't advocating. What she was doing was working together with Shelley and Danica Garner, pretending to be friends with me, pretending like she's going to help me. They were pretending like they were going to help me, and they just played head games. Meanwhile, I find out that Kara Johnson Miles, while she's pretending to be buddy-buddy with me and is going to help me, she's fucking slandering the shit out of my name in these Natalie Bollinger groups. She pretended to be a medical professional. And, of course, an advocate. She was neither. The same thing with Katie Cahill. Katie Cahill, one of the sites that I'm in charge of, it's called The Real Justice for Natalie Bollinger No Drama. The conversations with Katie Cahill on this channel showed that she was aware of my predators, that they were predatory towards her, and also her not keeping her word. As far as it being called the Real Justice for Natalie Bollinger Group No Drama, it was nothing but drama. Natalie's friends and family, every time I got on there to try to show evidence of what was really going on, of the fact that they were the ones who victimized Natalie, not me. Yes, I fucking cursed. You goddamn right I did. I was also being cursed at. I was also being fucking assaulted. So yeah, I had every right and every reason to be fucking pissed off, and I still do. Now, Girl Interrupted knows enough about my situation to actually make the calls and call it in, but does she have the technological ability to actually record it and send the recording to me? For her, it may not be a matter of not being able to help. It might be a matter of not being able to record it. But then again, if she has the number that she called and the time that she called and the person that she called and the number that she called from, then it can all be dragged out. The problem is, are the cops going to bother to do their job in the situation? Are they going to bother to look it up? Are they going to bother to go talk to the people that they need to talk to? And that's what makes these felonies, is because these officers know that the law requires them to do these things, and yet they're not. Many of these officers got busted because they got a big head. They harmed people. They got away with it. And then they were more brazen about it. Look at Officer Waylon Lolotai. He assaulted somebody in the Denver jail. Should have gone to prison for it. Instead, he was hired on as a hobo hunter in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder police do not investigate. They harass homeless people. That's what they do. Why did JonBenet Ramsey's killer get away? Because all the cops know how to do is intimidate homeless people. It's because rich people, between stopping actual crimes and hiding poverty, their money goes towards hiding poverty. Same thing here. Oh, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. Yes, it is. All of these officers who want to tell me it's not their fault, it absolutely is. I am an at-risk adult. They do have to do something about it. It is required by law. Them not doing their jobs as mandated reporters in this state is a $2,000 fine. Not even any jail time. They might lose their job, but no jail time. Now, when they try to hide the fact that they didn't do their jobs as mandated reporters, or go to their friends to have them do something, people they work closely with to have them do something, that's against the law too. That's felony, and it falls in the range of conspiracy as well. There's also the legal stuff that I posted up, I don't know, it was last week, I guess. And a lot of this stuff I have to post on my Facebook because I can't just post up a bunch of screenshots here. Be nice if I could, but I gotta have my computer plugged in somewhere because the battery is screwed up. It won't even turn on unless it's plugged in. Anyway, let's see. There's somebody calling himself 666 on Toast. Alright, this is another one of them nut jobs coming on here and trolling. He typed, "What do you think of microwave harassment, active denial systems?" I think that as far as gang stalking goes, that's not the definition. Gang stalking is when groups of people stalk you. Gang stalking isn't some Illuminati bullshit with alien fucking brainwave rays and shit. Anyway, I am gonna do what it is that I do to these guys because I already know I'm gonna get more of this. Oh, telephone. Oh, come on now. Hide user on this channel. Blam. Easiest damn thing ever. I don't know who just called me though. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. Those of you who have seen the videos today and in the last few days, please go through them. Find the ones with the police. I mean, the evidence is on my Facebook and on my YouTube channel. I'm not hiding it. I'm showing everything, even where I fuck up. I just don't have the ability to show everything as fast as it's happening. A lot of that comes down to having to record it on this thing because a 30-minute conversation on here could take 2 days to download on the internet. And some days I've got up to 15 of them on here. Some days I've got a big old long recording that's 7.5 hours long. That'd take me a week to download on my computer, and then another week to get it onto Facebook or YouTube. It's stupid. Anyway, please try to call it in. That would be the most useful thing you can do. I created this channel in the hopes that people would speak up. That people would look at the evidence and do something when it happened, instead of me having to be afraid and having to go ask local strangers for help. Anyway, if you guys could call up the Tillamook County Community Health Centers and explain to them that this is a health and safety risk that has been created by law enforcement in this town, that I have been forced to go public with all this stuff for years. I never wanted to do this. Now, Dove Rainbow, what does she have to do with this? Did she harm anybody in this? Did she threaten anybody in this? Is she calling people up from restricted numbers and harassing them? There's a lot of people that told me they never got a call from anybody. Meanwhile, the police claim that they did. But how are these people going to be able to tell if it was a cop or somebody threatening to kill them when they're having people call them up and threaten to kill them? That's right. Some of the friends that I have some friends that are also friends with Natalie. These people have, well, some of my friends' numbers already. So when they wanted to harass somebody for helping me, it was easy for them to divvy out my number. And it was fine, wasn't it? Well, apparently it's wrong for me to give out numbers. Well, there's 2 situations that'll get your numbers given out. Number 1, if you fucking scam disabled people. Number 2, and this is probably the more important, if you're a witness to crimes against me or against other disabled people, if you're a witness and the cops are not going to do their jobs, they need to talk to you. They need to investigate. I do put it up on YouTube because it is important. It does need to be investigated, and blowing it off is not going to help anybody. Matter of fact, it makes all of our lives worse. Puts all of us at risk because the predators are still out there, and you're blaming the victims because you've pushed them to the point they want their life to end. It's nuts. Good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind. You know what else? You're your sister's keeper too. Who kept Natalie safe? Was it her family or was it me? It was me as long as I was allowed to be. Obviously, when that was just her family that she had to depend on, the very people who drove her to the point that she wanted her life to end, when that's all she had left, she went right back to the druggies, right back to the drugs, right back to hell on earth. I agree with her decision for assisted termination of life. That's what I had been begging for myself for over a year before she was killed. She stole my suicide. Girl interrupted, typed, "You should answer and have it recorded." Ma'am, I have literally hundreds of them on my channel and recorded, and I did answer down at Fred Meyer's several days ago. I answered several phone calls from them. I do answer, and I do record it. Most of the time I have to do it on this because I have to make the phone call from inside of my car or answer it from inside of my car. But the ones in Fred Meyer, I had my phone already sitting on the speaker when they called. The problem is having to go back and dig through and find them. Even though it's only a few days ago, I still got to dig. And there's stuff that's months ago, and there's stuff that's years ago, all of them unresolved. Girl interrupted, typed, "I need one." Well, Daniel Apathy bought this for me. And it's a pain in the ass. You still have to have a computer to download the stuff to. It's a USB. But there's also the fact that, well, Daniel Apathy was a part of the situation. Not before Natalie's death, but after. See, this isn't just about Natalie, which is what everybody wants to focus on. Natalie, Natalie, Natalie. You know they found her killer. Yes, I do. Do you know that I've been threatened, harassed, intimidated, and assaulted and had my life and my family's life threatened repeatedly before Natalie was killed? Oh, they found her killer. I know they did. But that doesn't stop people from treating me like I'm a child molester, a raper, a stalker, or potentially a murderer. That doesn't stop people from blowing me off as if I'm schizophrenic because they called me mentally ill. Like Smokey Bear says, only you can prevent forest fires. By the way, I highly recommend you guys look up McGruff on Bullying. McGruff on Bullying. Bullying. Yes, it's a cartoon dog, so if you see a cartoon dog, you know that's what we're talking about. That's what we were taught as kids in the 1980s and early 90s. That's what we were taught. Those are the protocols I tried to follow. And they're pretty damn close to the legal protocols as well. But the legal folks who are supposed to follow the legal protocols, and I have that copy as well, and you guys can look that up as well, none of them are following the legal protocols. All of these agencies are making up outright lies, and many of them, with as many years as they've been in these services, they know they're outright lies. That's the worst part. Anyway, let's try to get this turned in, and please get a hold of the Tillamook place and explain to them there are people who are pretending to be their doctors getting a hold of their patients.